Founder and CEO, Jensen Huang.
Happy New Year, everybody. We have some really cool stuff to show you today, so I better get started. A year ago at CES, we announced the Tegra K1. The Tegra K1 was important for several reasons. First, of course, it is the highest performance mobile chip. However, it is also the world's first mobile processor that unifies the architecture of a desktop powerful GeForce GPU and the most modern GPU with that of a mobile GPU. It brought to mobile devices the ability to do things that, quite frankly, it was hard to imagine. It took us almost 2 years to bring Kepler to TK1. 4 months ago, we announced the Maxwell GPU. It is the world's most advanced GPU. The reception has been incredible. It is twice the performance per unit everything compared to Kepler. Twice the performance per unit area, twice the performance per unit energy, and it also introduced brand new graphics technologies such as VXGI, which is a voxel-based global illumination technology, as well as the world's first fully compatible DX12, a new API that hasn't even been announced and it won't come out until Windows 10. Maxwell is unquestionably the most advanced GPU we have ever built. Ladies and gentlemen, today we're announcing that the exact same Maxwell GPU will come to mobile devices in a processor we call Tegra X1. Tegra X1 is a mobile super chip. This little tiny thing here is a mobile super chip. 256 processor cores, CUDA processor cores, 8 CPU cores in a 4x4 configuration. The world's first mobile chip to be able to perform 4K video at 60 hertz with 10-bit. Are you talking to me? My friend here, we're like constantly communicating. He's giving half the speech later. Okay? The world's first mobile chip that can perform 4K 60 hertz 10-bit video in both H.265 and VP9. Nothing like it in the world. The world's first mobile super chip, Tegra X1. Tegra X1 is called Tegra X1 because of Maxwell. Tegra X1. The performance is really quite amazing. We set the bar with TK1, and it's the highest performance mobile processor in the world a year ago. Even to this day, it still holds the performance leadership relative to all mobile processors in the world. This is comparing to the Apple A8X, which just came out a year later. And when you compare that to TX1, Tegra X1, we're going to set the bar yet again. But what makes Tegra X1 really super special, and it's made possible because of the Maxwell GPU architecture, is the energy efficiency that we're able to achieve. With Tegra K1, we were already the most energy efficient architecture in the world. I don't mean just lowest power. Lowest power is an important metric, and oftentimes comes with it low performance. The important thing about what we're trying to achieve, because we're trying to deliver extraordinary performance within a very small power envelope, energy efficiency while you're doing a great deal of work is important to us. Super energy efficiency is vital to almost everything that we do. It is one of the reasons why it took almost 2 years to bring the Kepler architecture to mobile processors. Today, with the Tegra X1, we're going to take energy efficiency to a brand new level. Unbelievable levels of energy efficiency. What this basically means is that at exactly the same power envelope as Tegra K1, we're able to achieve twice the performance. And if we, of course, increase the energy, thermal envelope, the power envelope, we can increase the power even further, performance even further. Now, those are benchmarks and performance measurements. And tonight, you're going to see a whole lot of websites that deeply benchmarks Tegra X1. But what makes Tegra X1 really, really special is what it can do. Now, one of the things that Tegra X1 is able to do, of course, is run the state-of-the-art engines that any desktop computer can run. And because Maxwell is the most advanced GPU architecture in the world, we're able to run every application or any application that requires the architecture of Maxwell. At last year's launch of the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, the premier demo was the Unreal Engine demo called Elemental. In fact, we showed this very demo about 2.5 years ago, and it consumed about 300 watts for us to perform that. Last year, at the launch of these next-generation game consoles, Unreal Engine 4 running Elemental consumed well over 100 watts. And now, in just the power envelope of a TX1, which is about 10 watts, we're going to show you the state-of-the-art Unreal Engine 4 running Elemental. Guys, let's roll it. Is that amazing, guys? Now, that was not a video. That was all run in real time. You were seeing Unreal Engine 4 running Elemental, the demo done by Epic. Everything was done in high dynamic range lighting, which basically means each one of the pixels, the RGB, are all floating point. Everything was done in high dynamic range. Notice that all the particle systems, the physics simulation, when the castle collided and rocks were falling, all of the lighting, all of the shadows, all done in real time. The lava was lighting the environment around it. All of this possible now in a little mobile super chip we call Tegra X1. Exactly the same engine that runs on a high-end PC, exactly the same engine that runs in a next-generation game console, Tegra X1. Now, Tegra X1 has also something that's quite unique that has never been introduced in one of our architectures before. Tegra X1 is the first GPU that we have that includes a new format we call FP16, 16-bit floating point. When you combine all of the processors, 256 processors inside our chip, the floating point throughput of TX1 is really unbelievable. It is the world's first mobile superchip to exceed 1 teraflops of computational throughput. 1 teraflops. Now, to put that in perspective, up until the year 2000, the fastest supercomputer in the world achieved 1 teraflops. Now, of course, it's 64-bit floating point instead of 16. However, 16 is what we need, and I'll explain that in just a moment. 1 teraflops in the year 2000 was the fastest supercomputer in the world. It required 10,000 Pentium Pros and consumed 1 million watts. 1 million watts. Literally just a decade and a half ago. A decade and a half later, We're now able to put the supercomputing capability into one little tiny chip. Now, if you were to compare Tegra X1's floating point performance to the highest end performance CPU today, the Core i7, it's even pretty impressive by that standard. Now, a Tegra X1 consumes about 10 watts running full out. A Core i7 running full out consumes somewhere between 100 to 200 watts. Tegra X1, the world's first teraflops mobile processor. 256 GPU cores, state-of-the-art Maxwell, 8 cores of CPU, 64-bit CPU, arranged in a 4+4, and the world's first mobile chip that 4K, 60 hertz, 10-bit video, and H.265 as well as VP9. That's our first announcement. What was initially called, codename Arista, known by many of you who follow us very closely, is now called Tegra X1. So the question is, what are we going to do with all that horsepower? What are we going to do with 1 teraflops inside a little mobile processor? Surely you don't need it for phones. Surely you don't need it for phones. It turns out that we believe the future car is going to pack an enormous amount of computational capability.